Have you ever had the feeling that someone is looking at you, not just glancing your way, but truly seeing something beyond the obvious? Not your eyes, not your body, not even your smile, but something far more intimate, your essence. These kinds of looks don't happen by chance, and Carl Jung understood that. Behind certain unconscious gestures lies an emotional truth that the conscious mind tries to deny, but the body reveals it without asking for permission. Today, I want you to pay attention to something that might be happening right in front of you, something you may have overlooked until now, because when this person does it, when they look at you, they probably feel much more for you than they're willing to admit to themselves. And no, it's not a typical glance, not a smile, not a friendly gesture. It's something deeper, a symbol, a sign that, if you can read it correctly, tells you exactly what their soul is feeling, even if their mouth continues to deny it. Carl Jung said the unconscious never stays silent. What we withhold in words, we shout with our eyes, with our silence, with trembling hands, with bodies that move closer without knowing why. When someone feels something for you, their unconscious always finds a way to express it. Because love, desire, and attraction are not ideas we can suppress without them finding their way to the surface. They manifest in every gesture, in every automatic reaction. Now think, just for a moment, of that one person, the one who seems to change whenever they see you. Maybe it's in their posture, maybe in their tone of voice, maybe in the rhythm of their breathing. And you can feel it, even if you can't explain it. Jung would have explained it differently. He would have said there's a synchronization between two unconscious minds, that your mere presence touches something in that person that disables their defense mechanisms. That's why they behave oddly. That's why they laugh more than usual, or suddenly fall silent, as if your presence confronts them with a mirror they didn't want to look into. The truth is, when someone is truly drawn to you, their shadow side becomes restless. And the shadow, for Jung, is the unconscious part of ourselves where we hide everything we don't want others to see. But love has a very special way of shining a light on that shadow, not to judge it, but to integrate it. That's why attraction doesn't show only in the polished and perfect parts of us, but in the awkward, the impulsive, the excessive. When someone feels something for you, their inner contradictions come to the surface, and that's exactly where you need to pay attention. Because if this person seems more nervous than usual in your presence, if they don't know what to do with their hands, if they look away only to look back again, if they laugh for no apparent reason, none of that is a coincidence. These are not weak signals. They are internal explosions leaking through the cracks in their self-control. They are signs of a repressed attraction, an attraction that doesn't want to be spoken, but can no longer be hidden by the body. Why don't they say it out loud? Because the unconscious speaks in symbols, not in clear statements. Because what we truly feel often scares us. Because deeply desiring someone also means feeling vulnerable in their presence. Jung said that true love confronts us with our own unhealed wounds. That's why many people stay silent about their feelings, because loving means revealing yourself, and not everyone is ready for that. But the body doesn't lie, and if someone gives you more attention than they're willing to admit, if they're always looking for you and pretending it's just coincidence, if their pupils dilate when they see you, if their voice changes only when they speak to you, then you're not imagining things, you're witnessing something real that just isn't ready to be brought to the surface yet. And that's exactly what makes attraction so mysterious. It speaks a language we've never been taught, yet all of us understand. Carl Jung often emphasized the soul recognizes what it needs long before the mind understands it. That's why there are people who feel something when they see you, something they can't explain, as if something deep inside them is remembering something they haven't even lived yet. And that creates a mix of excitement and confusion, a longing for closeness, but also the fear of seeing themselves in you, because there are gazes that not only awaken desire, but also forgotten memories. So the next time you see this person, pay attention to more than just their words. Observe their body language, their pace, their laughter, their silences, because all of that, even if left unspoken, is a disguised confession. And you might be the mirror confronting them with what they truly feel. If they're giving you more attention than they should, if they make that small gesture they don't show to anyone else, if they look at you in that certain way, then they probably like you more than you think. The strangest part of all this is that we often don't understand ourselves, why we're drawn to someone. It's not a conscious decision. You don't think it through, analyze it, and then choose. It just happens. And that it just happens hides one of the most powerful concepts Jung explored: projection. When someone looks at you, they're not just seeing you, they're seeing a part of themselves projected onto you, a part that is unconscious, repressed, forgotten. And if that part touches something emotional, attraction strikes like lightning, intense, unexpected, unexplainable. So if someone looks at you with more attention than they should, it's not just because they find you superficially attractive. It's because, in some inexplicable way, they see in you something they're missing, something their soul recognizes as familiar, even if it has never been named. Maybe it's your gaze, maybe your calm presence, maybe your energy. He doesn't know, but he feels it. And here begins the silent dance of unconscious attraction. Jung spoke of the animus and the anima, inner archetypes. The anima is the feminine part within the unconscious of a man, and the animus, the masculine part within the unconscious of a woman. When someone sees you and feels an unstoppable pull towards you, it's sometimes not because of you as an individual, but because you activate these inner archetypes. You embody something that their soul has long yearned for. They don't know why, but through you, a dormant part of their identity is awakened. That's why this kind of attraction is often accompanied by confusion, because the body reacts faster than the mind, because they feel close to you without even knowing you, because they feel trust without any shared history, as if something inside them is recognizing itself for the first time. This is not mere physical attraction, it's symbolic, deeply unconscious. It's the anima or the animus knocking from the other side of the mirror. And this is where something fascinating happens. When this person sees you, they don't just feel drawn to you, they feel incomplete, because you reveal to them something they are missing, not in a rational way, but on an energetic, emotional, symbolic level. And that creates tension. This tension can manifest in many ways: nervousness, avoidance, clumsiness, a magnetic force that cannot be controlled. But this tension is the clearest proof that something powerful is happening. Maybe he teases you in strange ways as a defense mechanism. Maybe he acts defensive without reason. Maybe he seems irritated when you're near, but he doesn't walk away. All of this is distorted emotional expression trying to manage a force that's too strong. And that force is, at its core, the projection of suppressed desire. The soul trying to complete itself through another, just as Jung described it. And there's something else. Not all signs of attraction are beautiful. Some are strange, even contradictory. Because when someone feels vulnerable in your presence, they often don't know how to handle it. Then they withdraw, pretend not to care, act cold or distant. But that doesn't mean they feel nothing. It means they feel too much, that they don't know how to integrate what you represent to them. Jung said, "What we repress within, we meet outside as fate." So if someone senses that you embody something they've suppressed, they will experience it intensely, perhaps even with fear, because without realizing it, you are the mirror of something greater. You are a symbol, you are an archetype, you are a trigger. So when someone behaves in certain ways upon seeing you, when their reactions seem exaggerated or unusual, don't dismiss it, don't brush it off. Observe. Observe with the eyes of someone who knows that the soul expresses itself in unpredictable ways. Observe with the patience of someone who understands that deep longing isn't always visible, but always leaves traces. And if those traces only appear when you're around, if you alone are the catalyst of that emotional movement, then there is something there. Not because they say so, not because they confess it, but because their body, their voice, their gestures are already saying it loud and clear. We often don't understand why some people look at us longer than necessary, why they smile in a strange way, or why their breath changes when we are near. But when you look at it through Jung's perspective, it all suddenly makes sense, because the unconscious never acts without reason. If there's an intense emotional reaction, there's always an emotional truth behind it, and you are the one who's triggering it. So if you notice that he behaves differently around you, more nervous, more awkward, more silent, more attentive, don't see that as a contradiction, but as a non-verbal confession. Because words can lie, but the unconscious never does. Something special happens when two people meet, and one of them feels something deep, even if they don't say it. I'm not talking about a fleeting crush or momentary interest. I'm talking about something that happens without logic, without planning, without being able to stop it. A subtle energy that shifts the entire atmosphere. You can feel it in the air, in the silences, in how time seems to slow down. This phenomenon is what Jung would have called synchronicity. Synchronicity means that two seemingly unrelated events are meaningfully connected. When you think of someone, and they appear at that exact moment, or when you feel you're being watched, and you turn around, and there's the gaze. That's not coincidence. That's a psychic connection, a resonance between two unconscious minds. And when someone feels something deeply for you, their mind begins to seek you, often without them even realizing it. So if they appear more frequently in places where you are, if they accidentally run into you in unusual locations, if your paths keep crossing without reason, then watch closely. Maybe it wasn't planned, but their unconscious led them to you. Their silent longing is making decisions for them, and that is one of the strongest signs that something deeper is at play, beyond what is visible. And no, it's not about stalking you or trying to control you. It's about an attraction that operates on a deeper level, as if something inside them simply cannot resist your presence, even if it's just for a few seconds. As if your mere presence without a word evokes in them a kind of relief or dizziness they don't experience with anyone else. According to Jung, the unconscious seeks wholeness. When we project a part of ourselves onto another person, that person becomes a symbol. They are not just themselves, they become what they awaken in us. Maybe they represent something the other person doesn't allow themselves to be, an emotional depth they've avoided, a tenderness they've suppressed, a love they've feared, and that's why your presence evokes something in them that cannot be ignored. Sometimes the mind doesn't know how to explain what the body has long since begun to feel. This imbalance creates signals, a laugh without an obvious reason, visible nervousness, a glance that lingers a second too long, a silence he cannot fill. All of these are cracks in the conscious mask, small leaks of the soul that can no longer be held back. And there is more. When someone feels drawn to you on the deepest level, even their defense mechanisms begin to shift. They might suddenly become protective without knowing why. They worry more, even though there's no real reason. They become more attentive, more generous, more open, but only with you. As if a part of them awakens in your presence, as if you activate something in them that had been asleep. And this seemingly random activation is in truth a profoundly meaningful inner experience. Jung said that the soul moves in symbols, images, and dreams. But when it is awake, it also shows itself in everyday reality. And you can become such a symbol for someone. You can represent something this person has always longed for, but never dared to seek. You can be the echo of an old desire. And that cannot be controlled, only felt. That's why, if this person changes the moment they see you, if their energy shifts, if their aura suddenly feels different, if their way of being in the world changes only in your presence, then that's a clear sign. And this sign doesn't come from conscious thought. It comes from deep within, from the place where decisions aren't made by thinking, but by feeling. And even if they try to hide it, if they keep their distance, if they play it off, their soul has already given them away. Because when someone feels more for you than they're willing to admit, they don't say it with words, but with their energy, their behavior, their small gestures, their heavy silences, their spontaneous reactions that even they barely understand. They say it without wanting to say it. And you, if you're paying attention, can read this language. Not with the eyes of reason, but with the eyes of the soul. Because if you learn to see from that place, you'll begin to recognize truths that have been in front of you the entire time. truths that aren't spoken but that scream from the depths of the unconscious. There is something else that few people notice when someone is deeply drawn to you: the inner conflict. Not the simple question of do I want this or not, but a much deeper struggle, the one between desire and shadow. Jung said that everything we fail to integrate within ourselves, everything we suppress, deny, or deem unacceptable, lives in our shadow. And when someone falls in love, this encounter awakens the shadow with full force, because to desire someone, truly desire them, is not only a bright and beautiful experience, but also a threat to the self-image that person has built, because you stir something within them that they can't categorize, not because it's wrong, but because it doesn't fit with who they believe themselves to be. And that is precisely why their behavior becomes contradictory. Sometimes they move closer, sometimes they pull away, at times they seem open, then suddenly closed off. This is the dance between desire and shadow. The archetype of the lover, according to Jung, is not just one who loves and desires, but one who is willing to be emotionally exposed, to open the innermost doors, yet not everyone is ready to embody that archetype. Because the lover not only shows desire, he reveals. He brings old wounds to light, insecurities, buried dreams. That's why many people run from what they desire most, because, without knowing it, they sense that love is not just beautiful, but also demands that they face what they've avoided feeling until now. So if this person behaves inconsistently, if they seek you out one day and close off the next, if they long for closeness and then seem frozen, don't be misled. It's not a lack of interest, it's too much intensity, a soul that wants but doesn't know how to handle what it feels, and instead of confessing, it hides behind contradictions, as if it were fighting to maintain control, while everything inside screams to let go. Sometimes the unconscious protects itself through attack, or sarcasm, or forced indifference, but behind these defense mechanisms is the trembling of someone in love, who has been thrown off balance by a look, your presence, your gesture. This is one of the clearest signs that you mean more to him or her than they are willing to admit. The emotional system becomes tense. The personality begins to behave differently in ways they themselves hardly understand. You'll notice it if this person becomes more thoughtful with you than with others, if they choose their words more carefully, if pauses emerge where there used to be none, if their reactions become more emotional, more vulnerable, but only with you. It's not an act, it's a soul unintentionally lowering its defenses, because when someone is deeply touched by your presence, their social self, what Jung called the persona, begins to crack. And that's crucial, because we all wear a mask, a way we present ourselves to the world. But true love does not operate through the mask, it destroys it. And what remains is the soul, bare and exposed. So, if he or she looks at you differently, it's not just a sign of sympathy. It's a sign that their deepest self is reacting to you, not from control, not from a role, but from the innermost core. And you can feel it. There comes a moment when attraction is no longer just chemical, it becomes symbolic. You begin to represent something, perhaps freedom, perhaps tenderness, perhaps intensity, perhaps a forbidden desire. But that symbol carries weight, it holds emotional charge, and each time he sees you, that charge is activated, and his body shows it. A glance that holds too long and suddenly breaks when noticed. A smile that appears without reason. A silence that refuses to end. A sentence that is spoken and then quickly corrected. None of this is coincidence. Don't mistake his distance for indifference. Often it's a desperate attempt to control an emotion that's overwhelming him. Because you move something in him, you touch him on the inside, and he doesn't know how to handle it. Some believe that if someone doesn't behave clearly, it means they don't feel anything. But in depth psychology, confusion is often a sign of intensity. When nothing is at stake, everything flows easily. But when the soul trembles, behavior becomes unpredictable, because it's no longer about mere attraction, but about something that touches the deepest layers of identity. And that's exactly where you should look, not just at what he does, but at what he can't control, at what slips out of the script, at what arises spontaneously the moment you enter the scene. Because if this emotional chaos only unfolds in your presence, it's not a coincidence, it's a revelation. All of this has no words, but it has form, a form in his gestures, in his pauses, in his contradictions, because the unconscious reveals itself in what escapes us, not in what we control. And if someone feels deeply for you, it will show, even if they try to hide it, even if they don't understand it, even if they deny it. Jung said that the soul seeks wholeness, that we project onto others what we don't want to see in ourselves, that love is often a mirror in which we unexpectedly, unintentionally, and unguardedly recognize ourselves. And every time someone truly sees you with that intensity that pierces through the obvious, they might be feeling far more than they'll ever admit. That's why you should pay attention, not just to what he says, but to what his soul is already saying against its will. Observe whether his breath changes when you get closer, whether his voice softens when he speaks to you, whether he smiles just because he sees you, whether he suddenly doesn't know what to do with his hands when you're around, whether his body language opens up even if his words stay guarded. Because true desire shouts, it seeps through, it shows itself in fragments. And you can learn to read those fragments once you start seeing beyond the obvious. If this person displays those small, subtle, automatic, and unintended reactions only in your presence, then they like you far more than you think, far more than they're willing to admit to themselves. And if all of this resonates with you, if you feel that someone is behaving toward you in exactly this way, and you want to understand what lies beneath, then this space is the right place for you. Because here, it's not just about relationships, but about the soul behind the bonds, about what we hide and yet still show, about what Jung might have seen through your eyes. And if you too want more people to learn how to see love from a deeper place, from the symbolic, the soulful, then share this video, leave a comment, help bring this message to those who don't yet know they need to hear it. Because when we begin to understand others through the unconscious, we no longer feel rejected, we feel seen. And in that moment, everything changes.